Hello,
Hi, Bharat.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great. Welcome to the Lift Oneself blah, blah, blah. You're my third podcast for the day. I'm like, okay. All right. Come on, Nat. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Bharat. I'm so thankful you're here with me.
I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity.
We're going to go deep, and the listeners are going to be able to hear some of my own personal life story. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Will you join me in a meditation so that we can align our hearts and come drop into this moment?
Absolutely.
And for the listeners, many of you guys listen to podcasts while driving or running or doing some errands. For the visual part, I will ask you to keep your eyes open because we want you to be safe and everybody around you. Yet for the other prompts, you're able to follow with whatever you're doing. So I'll ask you, Bharat, to close your eyes
Yeah.
and begin breathing in and out through your nose. And bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. Whatever sensations or feelings that may be coming up in the body, allow them to surface, to feel and release while staying with your breath. Surrender the need to control, release the need to resist, and just be. Be with your breath and drop into your body. Keeping your awareness on your breath. Keeping your awareness on your breath, dropping further into your body. While still staying with your breath, at your own time and at your own pace, I'm going to ask you to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. How's your heart doing?
Great. Great. Other than this cough, my heart feels good.
Do you have water for yourself or tea?
I do, yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Can you let the listeners know who Bharat is?
Right now, Bharat is this recovering man who's been sick for a week.
Oh
But
my.
I call myself trauma-informed medicine man. Because most of my work involves serving medicine, but I also really my work is space holding, and I've been space holding in different contexts for years now. So the medicine work is a way that people come to me, but most of it, my work involves witnessing and holding and reflecting, supporting, reassuring, comforting sometimes. So I would say I'm a professional space holder.
Yeah. And you are that. For the listeners, I reached out to Bharat. I was shown about Kambo, and I was given you as a referral for that Kambo. And so can you let the listeners know what Kambo is?
Yeah, so Kambo is a secretion from a frog in the Amazon. It's called a giant monkey tree frog. Um, and this secretion has a lot of beneficial peptides, which are really amino acids, right? And these amino acids are bioavailable for human beings. So, sorry, what that means is our bodies literally absorb these peptides. Um, and there's about 13 to 14 researched and identified peptides or classes of peptides. So some of these peptides are amazing for detoxification. Some of these peptides are phenomenal for lowering chronic inflammation, which is probably the number one cause of health issues in North America. There's a class of peptides called dermoceptins, which are amazing for are anti-parasitic, bacterial, antiviral, you name it. And so they're really good at clearing a lot of different pathogens while boosting your immune system. There is a peptide called dermorphin, which is 20 to 30 times stronger than morphine. So chronic pain is like one of the most common things that people come to me for. And a couple of treatments of Kambo usually clears it. So people go pain-free. Also, a lot of neuropeptides, so peptides that work on the nervous system. So whether it's just simple things like, well, not simple, but things like, let's say, migraines or brain fog or anxiety, depression, addictions, all these different variety of things that are linked with the nervous system. Kambo is phenomenal for that. So it's such a beneficial medicine. Obviously, your intention, how you come to meet it, makes a big difference on what you receive from it.
So for the listeners, I did this, it was March, right? At the beginning of March? Yeah, it was the beginning of March that I went. I knew what I was getting into. And I am, a lot of people call me radical and a warrior because I just face things. And especially what I went through 10 years ago with the lesions. So I face pain. The experience was very humbling for me. Very humbling. And it allowed me to see I still really need to work on receiving help. Did you notice that in that session?
Uh-huh.
It was, I'm not, it's not painful. I didn't feel pain. The part that felt uncomfortable was that I guess I went into really low blood pressure. And when you go into low blood pressure, everything feels spinning. So how I could compare it to is, say if you've gotten really inebriated and the room is spinning and you just want it to stop and it's not stopping, and then your body's going to purge. What I found really interesting, when I was purging through my mouth, I knew I was going to purge both ways. And I would like you to get into what those two purges, what you've seen with people. My first purge was through my mouth, and to be authentic. What really fascinated me is I was purging, but there was no taste, there was nothing. But when I looked in the bucket, it was yellow as can be. And I was like, what is that in there? You were like, well, it's bile. I'm like, I don't think I told you that, but I was like, I don't taste bile in my mouth. And usually, like, what's coming out in me, you would taste that in your mouth. Is there a reason why I didn't taste it?
No, not really.
And
That's just your experience. It is a combination of bile, stomach acid, obviously all the water you drank, right? But yeah, it's there could be different reasons. I can only hypothesize because one of the things that so when you detoxify, when your cells are releasing toxins, a lot of our senses change. So A lot of people post Kambo especially will say certain things taste nasty moving forward. Their sense of like a lot of times people will say their eyesight is clear, like, hey, everything's like darker or brighter. Sorry, not darker, brighter. They'll say the sense of hearing has become like more alert. Is it part of that process for you? Maybe. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it
But
was.
that's
I found
your
that
experience.
fascinating because what I saw
Yeah.
in the bucket, and usually like you would feel it, like taste it and feel the difference in your teeth and the acidity of it. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't feel that. Um, so my experience, what I was really challenged with, and as I said with the second session that we did, and when you asked me, well, what do you feel? Like I was like, I don't like this. And you asked me, what are you feeling? And I was like, helpless. And that helplessness just got big. And then with my second session, I had to purge, I had to have a bowel movement. Yet I noticed afterwards, I would not allow you to help me. I was like, I crawled to the bathroom. And then I remember telling you, I was like, I don't know where I'm getting the strength to crawl up onto this toilet. Like, I don't know. Yeah, what I found really fascinating was like, Natalie, why didn't you allow him to help you? Yet it allowed me to go even deeper into the trauma that I've experienced as a young child and feeling that vulnerability and feeling that, like, oh, well, I don't want to be an inconvenience, but I also don't want to feel vulnerable putting myself in a space where I could be harmed. So all kinds of different things that opened up for me afterwards for the Kambo that I couldn't see in the moment. Yeah, because of the tools of self-awareness that I do and engaging to, question and look at it more and really allowing me to create safety in my nervous system so these things can come up and show me. I'm interested to hear what your perspective and what you saw in the session.
Mm-hmm. Um, so it's interesting you bring this up because one of the things that Kambo is, in my perspective, known for, it's called a revealer. And it can reveal underlying undiagnosed health issues through some of the reactions that could come up. But it could also reveal some of your deep subconscious, unconscious behavior patterns, belief patterns, and even just patterns of being, in daily life, how we are. So, like you said, for you, it was realizing, wow, okay, I still have trouble receiving. And that receiving is such a broad word because it's not just receiving help. It could mean receiving abundance. It could be receiving the masculine, right? Or staying in your feminine so that you can receive from the masculine. There's so many layers to this, right? And so for me, when I watch it, I could see the initial discomfort of like, holy shit, this is more intense than I actually thought, right? That was the most obvious thing that stood out for me, which is often it's pretty common. A lot of people, understandably, right? Like you can have ideas of what purging will feel like, or what increased heart rate feels like, or nausea feels like. But when you sit with it and you're in that discomfort, it's a different ballgame. Your mind's going to start making noise, right? But what I also do find is, like yourself, at some point you realize that there is nothing else to do. There is no escaping this. Like, even if, let's say, I took the points off sooner, you still have Kambo in your system. So you're going to have to sit with that a little longer, right? And that's one thing I observed, is at some point you were like, all right, here we are. Let's just sit with this because there's no running away. There's nothing to do differently. So I did sense that surrender, especially in that second round where it's like, all right, here we go. But I also see courage in that because just to give the listeners some context, we did what's called a double treatment. So we did the first treatment, you had a 20, 30-minute break, and we did this whole process again with more points, right? Now, this is where after the first round, you could say, and anyone has the freedom to do this, no one's obligated to do a second round, but you committed to that process and you said, all right, here we go. I don't like this, but we're doing this because this is what we've committed to. So I also see courage. I also see commitment. And I think those two are very important things in the healing process, right? Because healing is scary, whether you do it with these medicines or not. And you have to know when to like back off, when to slow down. But you also have to know when you got to see this through, you know? And I think I find a lack of follow through with a lot of people.
Mhm.
Again, not saying that if you don't feel safe, you have to still move forward and push yourself. But sometimes when you have the capacity and the will and the desire, and you can go that little extra distance, you want to. And so that's something I observed. And then yes, and like you said, right, like the part about, well, why am I not allowing him to help me? Right? Which I totally understand from what you said, right? Because there is the past traumas of like, how much can I be vulnerable while still protecting myself?
Mm.
Right? And that's so valid. So for me, it was just an observance of like, oh, interesting pattern here. And that's it. I do my best not to give it meaning. I
Yeah.
rather you tell me what that was, which you shared. So thank you for that. But those are some things that I observed through that whole thing.
Yeah. And to let the listeners know, I even passed out.
Mhm.
So coming through to that, it was like, wait, and that brought me in another dimension. And then to come out of that and be like, wait, I passed out. And I have a video of it. So I will give certain parts and show the listeners and whoever's on my social media to see what my experience was and what that looked like. I know I had put a little clip of it a little bit after our session, yet now I'll put more of the clip so that they have the audio and they can hear. Because for me, I would highly recommend it. Um, I understand I understand that I have a different experience. I face death. Like, lesions in your brainstem is no joke. It's not like I was hospitalized for almost 40 days and they had to do all kinds of tests and everything else and still not know what was causing the lesions in the brainstem and cerebellum. So, and I had like swelling in my meninges. So the extreme pain that I was in 10 years ago stretch my pain tolerance. So when I engage with things, I'm like, I've already experienced something. I know there's a version in my body that it's like, oh, we don't want to do this no more. And it's like, but we have the capacity to do this and we understand what the intention is. And there's always, for myself, I could see a bit of the signal of, am I going to die? Like, is this, because we never know, like, no matter what, I could walk outside and the bus or a tree can hit me. So when you're putting these peptides in and all of a sudden, like my reaction was very low blood pressure and the passing out and just I felt like very inebriated and not being able. I remember you talking like when you took the combo out and I was coming back into my senses and me like just like I can't even think. Like I like don't talk to me. Don't even have me try to make sense of anything or communicate because my neural energy was just so depleted. And then, resting and everything and then you come back like online and then it's like I got to do this roller coaster again. Oh, yet the second time was much different than the first time because there's such a reaction with your physical, your biology too, of what this is and when it's going to go. What I found interesting is when you put it on my leg and when it came up, as soon as it crawled, I felt it crawling up in here. And when it go here, that's when I was like, I just lost all my senses again in that low blood pressure symptom. Yet I would highly recommend the experience. I know it's intimidating because it's outside of the norm of the medical system. Yet if you have a trust in, the universe, into nature, into medicine, and I don't know why it's called alternative medicine because it's been traditional medicine. It's been here for eons. And really understand that you're a part of nature. I know as humans, we've been kind of indoctrinated that we're above and we're this being that is governing everything else and everything is below us, where it's like, no, you're a part of this, and everything, plant medicine is here to give you the information needed. I know for a few days afterwards, I was very depleted and very tired, where I had to rest. And what I appreciated was the space of care and tenderness that you held. We were strangers. It was the first time that we got to interact. So I can understand where my biology was like, no, you can't trust this man, because it's a very vulnerable space. And I understand that there have been harm. Like, there have been stories where people have taken advantage of people because whatever there is with the human interaction. So I understand where my biology kicked in, yet the space and the tenderness and the care and the compassion that you held was very sacred. So I'm very thankful that you were honoring this gift to provide the space for people to find a different healing within themselves and to really engage with their nervous system, because that's what they're doing, which trauma informed means that you understand the 4 F's of the nervous system and how complex and intricate it is. And people think, okay, well, it's just one part. It's like, you have no idea how many layers of onion you got to unpeel with this thing. And if you don't have a willingness to face the pain, and like you said, like the courage that I had and the commitment, you'll falter. Like, even just meditation, when stillness starts to get to you and it starts to overwhelm the system, people jump out because it's like, I don't. So it takes a willingness of being tethered to your curiosity to go into this unknown, uncertain, and to let things reveal themselves about you, which I'm thankful for that space, for, the experience. Is it shitty? Yeah, it is. Yet I would do it again, though. Like, that's the thing. And then it's like, oh, am I addicted to pain? And it's like, no, it wasn't painful. That's where, and I get that other people have different definitions of what pain is, because feeling helpless and that low blood pressure could feel painful because, your biology is trying to control things and it feels like a threat, yet understanding surrender.
Yeah, and also remembering that not your next experience may not be anything like this. It
No.
could be completely different. Maybe it has nothing to do with your blood pressure anymore. Maybe something else comes up, right? So I think this is the important part about working with these medicines, these animal plant medicines, earth medicines, psychedelic or not, whatever it is. But you have to build a relationship. I think a lot of times people come to these medicines with like, I'll come in, I'll do it once, and boom, okay, let's see what happens. And if something happens, great. If nothing positive happens, then maybe it's not for me. Or if something negative happens, then it's not for me. I think what people, it's that, again, Western medicine programming of like, will this work? Oh, it didn't work. Okay, then maybe something else. We just jump from one thing to the other. Or it's even like, I always say that it's like, when you come and meet a medicine, it's like you went on a date, and some things were interesting, some things were, I don't like it. But then you try to go like, hey, maybe let's explore a little more. Let's get to know each other. And that's what these beings are too, right? These are sentient beings, these medicines. And so, I think, one, it's really important to build a relationship, whatever that looks like. Second, really taking the time to see what shifts from this medicine or any medicine, but also like, what are you doing after, right? Because, let's say, for example, I work with people who have alcohol addictions, and there's a certain protocol we use for treating that. Now, it's great to do that Kambo and purge, and your cells are getting cleaner. You're not wanting the alcohol as much, perhaps, whatever. But now let's say you hang around people who keep drinking all the time. That's going to be a problem. If you don't clean up your nutrition after, or you're not sleeping well, or you're not taking some basic nutrients. So also, it's not just what this medicine can do for me. It's what are you doing in conjunction with that process to help your system heal, whatever that is, on a physical level, whether it's the mental, emotional, energetic level. So I think that's an important thing that I'd like listeners to know, is that give it time and build relationship and take ownership of your own process.
Mhm.
And then the other side of this, one thing I want to mention about Kambo specifically is the reason I love Kambo is because of its power to bring you in your body. You know, a lot of us are trying to analyze our problems, solve it through the mind. Some of us are out of our minds. Um, what Kambo does, it pulls you into your body. There is no going away anywhere. And so for a lot of us, I think in this culture, being in the body and feeling all its sensations alone is very therapeutic. You know, whether you do a single treatment, you do a double treatment, whether you do a microdose, you're going to feel stuff. And I think for a lot of us, that alone is like very, very, very therapeutic. You know, so I think that's another very powerful part about Kambo that I really like. Obviously, I serve psilocybin, I serve ayahuasca, and they're psychedelics. And yes, you have some experience of some sensation, bodily sensations on those medicines as well, but nothing is like Kambo. It's not a psychedelic. You're not out there. You're not out in some other world. You're here. And that's one of the biggest feedback I get from people is like, I've never been this present in my life, you know? And so I think that is one of the biggest gifts of Kambo.
Yeah, it is. It really does bring in the body. And um, I've been, meditating and really engaging with my nervous system. So to be present in the body, I've done that work. So when people are like, oh, I wasn't hearing anything, I can create that. So I'm thankful that I didn't have to go through those layers in that. Um, it was, yet I got to see even more where there's resistance in the nervous system and the things that need to be released and, the shadows that need to be brought into my light of awareness and have acceptance of it so that those defense mechanisms no longer have to be on high alert, that it can come when it really needs it, not my psychological or whatever sensations I'm perceiving on the outside, if that makes sense. How did you how did you get here? Like you said, you've been doing this for several years to hold space. How did you get to that part?
Oh, geez. So I used to hold space eons ago as a personal trainer. Um, so part of my work was obviously helping someone get in shape, but a lot of that when you spend 2-3 hours a week with a person for 6 months and sometimes a year, sometimes longer, you start getting to know the person shares a lot. And so that was my, I guess, the beginning of space holding, even though I didn't realize it at the time. From there I went into holistic nutrition. So I used to help people with their hormones, digestion, gut health, detoxification, all these things using nutrition, lifestyle protocols. And a lot of that would go even deeper than just when we were working out. Because a lot of it was like, what's your sleep like? What are you doing, 30 to 60 minutes before bed? What's stressing you out right now? If you have chronically elevated cortisol, what is actually causing that besides some of the food and some of the sleep and your body's inability to drain the system. So a lot of that started there. And then I also started learning energy work. So I was receiving energy work regularly, and my teacher was always someone that was all about empowering you. He never once thought or gave me the impression that he's healing me in any way. And so all the sessions, and this is why even my energy work sessions are like this. If we did a session, he'd give me homework. So great, I did my part, now you go do your part. So even just I started learning energy work, energy healing, got in that world of like cultivating consciousness. I spent a decade having like some very foundational practices of cultivating consciousness, doing energy practices. I started giving Reiki to people. All of that led me to like eventually at some point I went to Peru to work with ayahuasca because there was a significant event that had happened where it was a breakup, and I was like, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I've done the best I could, but there's this 20-30% anger, resentment that I'm not able to release, and it was starting to affect my health. And I was like, you know what? I think I just need a change of space. So let me go to Peru. I've been wanting to go to Peru, go to Machu Picchu, go see this new place. And then in that process, some voice in my consciousness is like, you're a spiritual guy. You've heard about ayahuasca. You'll get visions, you'll purge, and yeah, you might heal. So let's go look into this. And just like that, I booked a retreat. And thank God for taking care of me, because, sometimes things like this can go very badly. But I was blessed and I was protected, and I was taken deep into the Amazon jungle and worked with the Shipibo tribe, who have some of the, they probably have the oldest lineage with ayahuasca. So I was protected, I was taken care of, and I worked with them, and it was an incredible experience. But that's where I was also introduced to Kambo. They offered Kambo the next day, and at the time I didn't have a strong enough reason to receive it, but I watched people receiving it, and I was like, holy shit, what is happening? People's faces were turned into like frogs, and there was swelling, and they were barfing, but they all were like, I feel amazing. I've never felt this good in my life. So, okay, wow, this is interesting. So anyway, when I came back, I told a friend of mine, because he had like really bad eczema. He found a practitioner, started working with that person, and I think about a year later, I realized I have a mold infection. And knowing how difficult it is to treat mold, I decided to just go the Kambo route. So I went to his practitioner, and I did 4 sessions in, I think, a month, and it cleared all my mold. Fast forward, I had no intention of becoming a practitioner, but when the world shut down, and everyone was trying to figure out what this thing is, that's when I had started serving psilocybin. And I felt like my practitioner was stuck in Peru at the time. So I felt I just needed something in my belt to protect myself, my family, and my close friends, if whatever this thing is, right? And so I decided to get certified, and then I started serving, and it's been incredible since then. So I've been serving Kambo for, I want to say, 4 years now. And I've served over 300 people, and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. As I said, I would highly recommend it from my experience, even with the discomfort I went through. There's great benefits. Like I felt the difference in my body already in the few days after. And like I said, it brought me into more depth of going into my nervous system and really connecting more deeper into the wholeness of me with a W rather than these fragmented parts. So really bringing them in. What can you share about ayahuasca? Because I know this is like a very hot topic for a lot of people right now. And for people that are curious, what can you share that would be an invitation for those people?
I can tell you that, one, it is a psychedelic. It's one of the most potent psychedelics. Basically, it contains DMT, and it's usually a combination of the ayahuasca vine with chacruna leaves. At least that's the aya that I work with. And the chacruna leaves contain the DMT. The ayahuasca vine contains the enzymes so that the DMT can stay in your system for longer, so that you have these visions and you have these explorations. There is purging involved with ayahuasca, so it's part of the nature of working with it is, or even just part of the mechanism of working with it is you purge. So whether it's upward, you release, you vomit, or you have bowel movements, that's a given, it's expected. It tends to be a longer journey generally than, let's say, a psilocybin journey. A ayahuasca journey could be anything from 5 to 8 hours, maybe longer, depending on, again, the strength of the medicine, how much medicine you had, and just how you respond to the medicine. Incredibly transformational. Any of these medicines are, right? And of course, there's lots of variables to it. There's your setting, who's serving, how are they serving? There's a lot of different variables. So it's not just, it's easy for us to just summarize and say, yes, ayahuasca or psilocybin or LSD or whatever is transformational. Yes, it is. But also, I always say this: nothing from the Amazon, especially, is gentle, including Kambo, right? And so Aya can feel fierce, and that's because truth can be fierce, and that's what Aya does. It will put you in front of you. It will put aspects of you that you don't want to see in front of you, and and I think that's where a lot of that powerful healing is. But it could be scary for some people, and again, this is why you have to do it in the right environment with the right person. It is not something you grab and go. So those are the most, I would say, objective things I can say. Often people ask me, how is it like? What is it like? That's so hard to say, because that's like me trying to tell you what guava tastes like. I don't know. I can tell you my experience, and I can describe sweetness, but what is that, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where I think, like any other medicine, you have to feel that calling. You have to feel the pull.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence. Do your research, but also just watch when your mind is just trying to gather more information, because there is a certain level of minimal required sense of safety that you need. But also it can go, this opposite direction, where you're doing way too much research and you're now stuck in your head, instead of like, let me go see what this is about. Like, curiosity is a good enough intention, and so I would say yes, it's incredibly transformational, incredibly powerful, can be challenging, but I think the healing process generally is like that, right?
Yeah. And, for myself, I didn't go looking at Kambo videos. I didn't go looking to see, what the side effects. The only thing that I looked at, okay, what are some side effects that are significant? And I spoke to you about the water, because too much consumption of water can be in the cells. Yet what I appreciate and love is that your intake, you ask very thorough questions to make sure that there's no risk. Like, if there's any kind of a sniff of it, it's like, no, like, we're not here to try and push something. It's like, it's all in the healing and safety. And then when I saw certain questions, and I could understand, and now my own experience, I'm like, oh yeah, you wouldn't want to have those issues or symptoms happening while you're going through Kambo, because it would really rupture the biology and stuff like that. So I appreciate the intake and, the space that you're providing, because there's a lot of people that are going in the medical system and they're not getting any relief. It's just Band-Aids and not really getting to the root cause, and really, being able to interact with their nervous system. Like, our nervous system is such a powerful biology that it's like they're using all these different little parts, but not in the holistic aspect, which these plant medicines really bring you directly in there to face. And curiosity, if it's led with fear, you're going to find everything to talk yourself out of a situation. Curiosity has
and something that's important to realize is you're going to be nervous. Like, there is, I've done so, I've received all these medicines many times. I still get very nervous, and it's just, I think that's important for listeners to know, is that you're not going to be in a state of, oh, I'm not nervous at all. I would be very surprised. I would assume that you're dissociated if you're not nervous. But again, this is where that screening is important. My number one priority is your safety before your healing. In most cases, I don't really care about your healing. That's between you and the medicine. My job is to make sure that you are safe. You can receive the medicine safely. You're in a safe space. You're taken care of. And then you do your thing with the medicine, So I think that's important for people to also remember that you're never going to be like, oh yeah, I'm not scared, I'm not nervous.
No, yeah, that's the thing. It's being able to engage with that nervousness and still keep
Yes.
making steps.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's like as much breathing and much things that I went through, it's like, oh, I still like, oh, I'm going somewhere where and as you said, there's things that are not in my light of awareness, and am I prepared to see it? Am I prepared to do that work? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and then you recognize, oh, I can't go outside. It's all me, that I have to do that work. And then
Yeah.
that's its own tug of war internally. I want to bring you into a reflective question. I want to ask you to bring your awareness now and to go back to your 18-year-old self. And you have 3 words to tell your 18-year-old self to carry you to the journey of now. What would they be?
3 words for my 18-year-old self.
Mhm.
Trust, courage, and compassion.
Can you
Those
give
would
the
be 3
reason
words.
why?
Yeah. 18-year-old me was terribly lost. No clue what I'm doing. Very afraid. Um, very much. Um, there was no sense of sovereignty. It was, you do what you're told. Um, yeah, I those would be the reasons for for telling him to trust. You know the answers, you know the path. Um, have courage, take bold action, take aligned action, um, and have compassion for yourself first, um, because all the people that you're going to help, they need to know that you know how it feels to be them. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you willing to share what the intention was that in the meditation at the beginning?
Yeah, my intention was that the listeners feel the truth of my heart, um, beyond all the technical information that I'm sharing, for them to hear and feel the truth of my heart.
Yeah. And I felt it and I've been feeling it. So if the listeners open, then they will feel the vibration of it.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's many listeners that are hearing about all this. I'm located in Ottawa, Canada. So where can the listeners find you?
My social media would be probably one of the best places. It's at Be Thy Medicine, on Instagram, or my website is bethymedicine.com. Um, those would be the best places to read about me, what I offer. And I'm always happy to hop on a free call and just chat.
Yeah. And I did that. I reached out and then I did the discovery call. We chatted and spoke about it. And then I did the intake form. And then you were doing an ayahuasca retreat. So
Yeah.
that delayed some things. And I was almost curious about that. Yet my body was like, no, not yet. So I jumped into the Kambo and thankfully you had space. So, and like I said, I highly recommend the experience. If your mind is saying like, oh, what is this? Listen to that a little bit more than the fear that
Yeah.
might bring the reservation of everything. Yet always inform yourself too,
Yeah.
of what is right for you. Yet the intake form that you do with your clients allows any kind of things that would be a danger to be
Mm.
highlighted and you can have a conversation with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've said no to people. So,
Oh, have you?
oh yeah, I've had to. Just if there's a very clear contraindication, then I've said no. And then there have been I would say 2 rare instances where the person very obviously, I would say, was not ready for it. Where I've had to say, look, it doesn't seem to be the right time. Come back later. Just because when someone cannot find the time to chat with me for 15 minutes, for me, that's a red flag. You know what I mean? Like if you can't hop on a call how are you coming to ceremony? You know what I mean? So things like that, or they were not ready to. They were trying to find ways to bypass certain things I told them. So there was someone recently that it was a couple, and the lady, everything's clear, good, ready to go. The partner, when he doesn't eat for long, he gets acid reflux, and then he sometimes throws up and there's blood in there.
Ooh.
And so I said, look, that's a big red flag because I don't know what's going on inside you. Go to the doctor. And so they said they were going. Said they're going on Monday. Apparently they didn't. On Wednesday, I get a text saying, okay, we're good to go. I'm like, cool. What did the doctor say? Oh, we didn't go because it was a long lineup. I'm like, so, okay, you understand that you're taking a big risk with your life, correct? Like, because I could put Kambo on you, and if you have, let's say, an ulcer, or you have like a tear in your esophagus or something, and it ruptures, and I have to rush you to 911, you think this is worth it? And so I've had to say no in that situation. So, like I said, safety is number one. Healing is after.
Yeah. And that's where, like, when I read about the stomach and stuff, and I'm like, and there's some people that don't even realize they have ulcers because they're just
Sure.
going and don't realize the stress overload that they're putting in the body. Yet, like I said, the compassion and the care and the safety that you provide, it really, I felt that. And just like our greeting of having a hug and just the openness that you display, that you're allowing a person to feel received, and to allow that surrender, that like you're safe and you'll be taken care of. And as I said, I still have my work of receiving the help. Yet I do understand, the situation of it. And also the resilience of also just reminding myself, like, you have the ability to do this stuff, and telling my body, because when you are sick, there is a pattern in your nervous system that likes that attention. So then that can get very seducing, of always asking for help and relying on other people, that then stunts your growth of capacity and, expanding. So I know I'm anchored into that, to trusting my body and being able to push it a little bit more. Because I understand the benefits of that. So thank you again for being a guest, for holding space for me, for allowing the listeners to hear a sneak peek of your vulnerability, of how you got here and how you held space for me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
So listeners, I will have all of his information in the show notes. So don't worry that you have to press pause and find it and everything else. There will be hyperlinks so that you can get direct access to him. Please remember to be kind to yourself.
I will.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit. It's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.